All right, welcome to the show. Like always, this podcast is brought to us by Rooftop Realty. Give Rooftop Realty a call or go visit them at vegasrooftop.com, and they will help you out in these times to buy, sell, rent a home, or if you want a home to rent out, they will help you out. They are fully staffed and still open for business during this quarantine. So go check out Rooftop Realty.
Let me go, cause you can feel my heart break. And if you hold me close, then you can. That amplified noise you poured inside my ozone was so prone to homegrown my own voice. And letting you roam was such a poor choice. I'm nothing without your poise. I love that old joy. And ever since B left me, she won't speak unless.
Let's go. Wow, this microphone is dialed in.
Another exciting episode of Staying in Trouble here with Adam Short and Eric Humes. How's it going, Eric?
Good. I'm excited.
Dude, we've been doing this like distant learning thing with the kids.
They're loving it.
I have 7 kids. 6 are in school. I have 6 different devices, 6 different schedules, 6 different teachers, 6 different Zooms going on all day. I don't know how much more I can talk about this without cussing. It is absolutely crazy. So on top of me
Lance,
not just failing.
Lance, he's complained about this all month
Dude,
long.
it's been horrible.
Like, I'm literally just tired of it.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah. So on top of me not just failing as a teacher, which I'm doing quite well.
Lance, he's not doing anything with his children.
I'm also failing as an IT guy.
He's watching this happen in his house.
Dude.
He's observing.
Dude, it is nothing. And what I find ironic is the screen, the device, the enemy to all parents, the thing that parents want to get their kids off of, we're forcing them to stay on them to get all this schoolwork done.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. But anyways, we have a wonderful episode here today. We have Lance Bohne here in the studio, and he is a financial advisor. And just like some of our other guests that we've had, this is really important since we've been in this COVID-19 quarantine. We talked about physical health, we've talked about mental health, and I know this deep into the quarantine, finances and money is on everyone's mind. And we are so grateful that Lance was able to join us today. We've talked about all kinds of different questions on finances and stuff, but why don't you give a little introduction of yourself, a little background, and let us know a little bit more about you, Lance?
Sure. I'm with Financial Securities Institute. They're out of Utah, Salt Lake City base. I've been around for about 30 years. And I've been a financial advisor just shy of 20 years.
Oh, nice.
And so I thoroughly enjoy. I have clients in about 18 states and about 7 different countries that are people just living on an expat basis. And so it's fun. I enjoy what I do.
What got you into finances, or are you just like a numbers guy? You just kind of
financial planning. Let's go with financial planning. Finances are different.
Oh, no, true.
Yeah,
what got
kind
you
of a
into
blend of the two. So my family's background. So my family was in plumbing, and so I grew up as a little kid washing trucks, emptying trash, and learning the plumbing trade. And I remember seeing plumbers at the age of 40 that looked like they were 60.
Oh, yeah.
And I had no interest in doing that at all.
Oh,
and so
Lance, we generally don't talk about plumbers that way.
I'm
just
a plumber.
Realtors.
Yeah,
I get it. That's fine. I get that.
But it's you're 100% right. You're 100%
it's a hard way to make a living, but grateful for what they do all the same. But so that's kind of how I got into it.
Awesome.
So personally, I think you'd ask this question a little bit. So I've been married to my wife since 1996, and so a little bit of time she still puts up with me well.
Nice.
Went to BYU, then RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic, upstate New York. We have 6 kids, and my eldest is about to get married in about 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, that's been a bit of a struggle with all of
I
this.
bet it has. Has that messed with your plans, or
Oh, my goodness.
Has things canceled? Like, what has this whole quarantine done with that?
We initially were going to have her get married June 20th, but there was a number of building closures and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And so she's going to be getting married in a little small civil ceremony in Utah.
Oh, wow.
In Provo?
In Provo area.
And then you'll
May
probably
5th?
May 9th.
Oh, May 9th. Okay. I was say, because if there's going to be good food, we'll be there for the same situation for my sister-in-law in Provo.
Is that right?
I think it's May 5th. So
It'll be Provo Canyon.
yeah, Provo Canyon. Here we come.
Well, there
I
you
guess
go.
everyone's doing it. Line it up. It's at the courthouse.
Wow.
It's true. It's a struggle. But we have 6 kids. We actually adopted the last 3.
Okay.
We had 3 kids, and they are 22, 20, and 18. So my eldest boy, the youngest of the 3, is graduating this year. It's a weird year to
Kind of
graduate.
graduated already then.
Oh yeah.
Man, it's just rough. I don't know if he spends an hour a day on schoolwork. Maybe.
Maybe. Most of the I talked to my nephew who's in high school, and I asked him, and he's like, no. Whereas my middle schoolers are like full on 2 hours of school. My daughter just took her science test. She got first place. So I'm like, apple doesn't far from the tree.
Yeah. Chip off the old block here.
So, just so, me, I just like to hand out gold stars for everybody.
It's odd. My kids are having the same situation. We have them in front of Zoom, on their phones, in front of computers. It is interesting.
And my oldest is a senior this year, and she had a struggle year her sophomore year. She was hospitalized for a period of time. She missed most of her sophomore year. She had to make it up. She had to work so hard through summer schools to try to make up the credits to make sure she graduated on time with this little hiccup in her life. And she's really bummed. She really wanted the whole the whole thing. And then on Facebook right now, everyone's posting their senior pictures to like support seniors.
Yes.
So you talk about backdoor bragging. Come on, people. Like, are we really doing this? Like, these poor seniors aren't having a senior year. And then here's a picture of me when I was awesome in my senior year. Like, come on,
No
people.
senior trip, no senior night, no nothing. So.
I mean, are they even going to hold a graduation? I
Well,
don't know.
the kids, the school my kids attend, right now they have it scheduled at Thomas and Mack in June.
I thought that was a parade, though. Like, we'll just all drive by and wave.
But
Evidently, that's the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
I've seen this, yes.
But Thomas and Mack is still canceling stuff. That's not they even sent out an email saying, hey, we got it set up for June, but this is not a hard date. This can change overnight.
Right.
So as of right now, that's where we're sitting.
As long as the NBA Summer League makes it in July. That's all that I ask.
Hey,
Yeah.
the Strip is actually banking on that, by the way, actually.
I
The Strip
wouldn't be
is actually
surprised.
banking on July getting a pop, like Summer League coming back.
Yeah.
And they're looking at July being a good month, actually. But it's just getting through April, May, and June.
Right.
It's going to be still ghost town. So.
Yeah. The mayor was on TV telling the governor to open this place up. You're killing us, she said. I quote, you're killing us. But anyways, so let's talk money.
Yeah.
Money.
So, yeah, let's
It's
talk
on
about-
everyone's mind right now.
So, Lance, when you talk about financial planning, I think a lot of people don't talk to financial planners. They're like, "Hey, I'm not a millionaire yet. When I make a couple millions, when I get the gold from the shipwreck, then I call a financial planner." What's your average clients like? What's your sweet spot?
My sweet spot. So I deal with primarily those that are about to retire or who have retired. And so that's kind of where I focus. I do a lot with small businesses and estates as well, because they kind of fit that metric pretty often.
Okay.
And so one of the I think part of the question that you're asking though is when should somebody see a financial advisor or planner? And what I have found, so I'll help somebody even with a Roth IRA. I make absolutely no there's no fiscal compensation for me truly. For
Maybe a
helping
loaf of
somebody
bread
out.
or something.
Maybe
Some
a loaf
chickens.
of, maybe a popsicle.
high five?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little high five after the COVID virus thing.
Yeah,
you know,
right. Oh, yeah,
Minimize
yeah.
this. Let's be
Man, I keep forgetting.
let's be aware of that. But the reason why I say that is that it's a phenomenal tool, and oftentimes what I find is that it's far better to do something sooner than later, especially with something that once you get into like a Roth IRA, there's no taxation ever, right? Given that you only pull dollars out after the age of 59 and a half, right? And there's some other stipulations with that, but I find it to be a significant value, right? And if somebody can get a little bit of help, like I just think about my daughter who's about to get married. I wish I had known when I first got married to hypothetically have life insurance. Like when my wife and I, when we started our family.
Whole term. What do you think? What are you throwing out there? Because that is some of the advanced strategies. Is the problem is the other part about that is not everyone has a great foundation to fall back on, right? And I think actually, I mean, if we want to talk finances, you want to talk about young finances, we're looking at young people. You know, we're talking about those seniors that aren't having a great senior night. What's even worse is, you know, there was an economic downturn. You know, even when I graduated in '93, people, if you saw the uptick in people, you know, signing on to the militaries because there wasn't a great private sector. And now we're looking at that same situation. I mean, we're talking about most of the nation being laid off right now, which means people already in the job market are not, you know, secure with their position. And then you've got, you know, we're talking about a young couple. We're talking about your daughter getting married, you know, and now you've been in college and now they've put in 4 years. And this is usually where, hey, we're going to hit the ground running is, you know, I don't think all those rules are going to apply. Like we're all kind of scrambling right now. It's like lizards in the desert. We're trying to find the rocks that are cool. And there's going to be some people that are going to be left out and baked. And so what advice would you give someone? Because I think more people are kind of this in the middle of between, you know, hey, graduating from college right now with student debt, and obviously that'll be deferred for a long time, but you've got that, and then you've got like, hey, I don't even know if my career is going to exist.
Right.
You know, UNLV is world renowned for hotel administration. Right now, the tourism industry is on the bottom of the barrel. It literally has burnt to a crisp. And so just think about the seniors that are coming out of, you know, schools like UNLV or other hotel administrations or even business administration schools. If there's not businesses to administrate, it kind of makes those educations very difficult. So what are you telling those people?
There was like half a dozen different things that I could answer right there.
Sorry, I actually, if you're
there's
wondering,
a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, if you're wondering, it just all flows off the top of my head. Just so you know.
Well, maybe I could piecemeal that out. To use a personal example, like when my wife and I first got married, we were starting our family. I had no idea that I should have had some level of life insurance on her. Honestly, so the answer that I would give, you said one of the questions you asked was about term and whole.
Right.
Yes. They're tools.
They are tools. The reason why I say that is like, so I did have whole insurance when I was younger because I knew those advanced strategies. But when you are struggling, when you're
Yes.
scrambling, and that whole life insurance is a bigger payment when
Yes.
you're younger. You're looking at rent, food, gas, insurance, and then at the bottom down there is that whole life insurance.
I agree.
And so, you know, and that's a sad thing is like if you don't make it, it used to be, I think it was 2 or 3 years of carrying that insurance payment. I think even after 2 years, because I think you have to carry it a longer term than that. And I mean, that'd be a question. Yeah. So if you don't even, so you're like, dude, I just paid into this for 2 years and you got nothing to show for it. Like if you stop that payment, but whereas term insurance is like pennies on the dollar.
Right.
So
I would go back. So when I said yes, I wasn't trying to hedge the question necessarily, but whole life insurance and term insurance are simply tools. And it's not, I don't necessarily agree with the pundits, Susie Orman necessarily, or Ramsey, that on a mic will give this cumulative advice to a massive macro audience. That to me doesn't make sense. I think there's a time and a place for the tool according to what the need is. The first responsibility and goal with life insurance is to protect the individual. Right. What is the goal of the insurance? Kind of getting back to that personal situation, my wife, she had complications. And this is a little bit personal, but I hope I don't get in too much trouble. But she had complications.
Name of the podcast.
Yeah.
And so she
come on in, water's warm.
There you go. But as a direct result, For the rest of her life, she's physically, medically going to be rated at 3 different tables. And so what might cost you or me $20 a month is going to cost her $60 to $70, $80 a month.
Yeah.
For just term insurance. I mean, again, I don't want to specify the term or the whole concept. The idea was that if she weren't here, that there would be enough assets to protect the family. It's the same goes for me. And so the goal is that's the first important thing. Term insurance has its play. I own term insurance. I also have whole life insurance. But it goes back to, what are you trying to achieve? What is the goal of the asset? There are significant strategies out there where whole life insurance, especially on estate or business planning, to say nothing about the personal planning, that it's incredibly relevant. It makes all the sense in the world, especially with business continuation and estate planning. And so, again, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. There are some plans where it's actually, you said something. If you're doing a whole life plan and you think that you're going to be able to carry this for a longer period of time, it is a long-term type of a plan. And if you anticipate that, hey, there might be a difficulty 2 to 3, 5 years out, don't get it. Or have a very small policy on that side. Because you are going to build up equity, just like within a real estate position, right? If you're going to buy a home versus rent an apartment or a home, right? You're building equity. You're going to be paying more dollars toward that equity position, but then you have ownership. And so it depends. And I know that maybe this discussion isn't necessarily supposed to be about life insurance, but that is something that as I was starting my family, that I wish I had known about. I also wish that I had known about a little bit about the Roth IRA position, right? I mean, to put dollars into a position where it's never going to be taxed again, in a mutual fund or stock or whatever the case may be, that'll grow at just say 10% a year. You're going to double your dollars in 7.2 years. I mean, heavens.
Yeah, and the reason why I brought that up is, and I think it misses the point though, Lance, is because, what I see, what happens in life, when you talked about it too, it even happened for your own personally, is there was complications. And I think that happens for everybody. Like, there's complications. And so, and we're talking about, the majority of middle America being laid off right now.
Yeah, the whole world's in a complication right now.
Whole world's in a complication right now. And so for those, that's where I see the tools or maybe I think the tools and the education are lacking, right? So in my sphere,
I actually totally agree.
Yeah, so for my sphere, right, I loved is, I got a text message today from one of my family members and says, hey, I'm tired of renting. And it's because I'm like, yeah, guess what? There's other ways you can burn your money. You can burn it in the backyard. You can burn it, at the casinos. You can burn it a lot of ways. Renting is, but at the end of the day, you have to live somewhere, right? And it has to meet your needs and your goals and your wants.
Right.
And so in the same way, though, they talk about in school these days is home ec is not there. Right. So this quarantine has been great.
Oh, yeah. We've been teaching home ec like crazy.
Yeah, that's right. Home ec has been like on fire. Right.
Yeah.
But, something else that they don't talk about is, before when they used to have checks, is people didn't even know how to write a check. Right. You'd have to go to the bank. The teller would be like, oh, no, you need to write that there. Oh, yeah. Sign your name here. Write the, how much cents over 100. And so we talk about schools and we talk about education. And I think and so that's why I asked you that question at first, because to me, I think the low-lying fruit is someone that's already retired, because those complications of life have already played out. And so yeah, now you're looking at the sunset, you're looking at estate planning, and there's different facets there. Right. Just a little background for me, just, I do a lot of probate, I do a lot of guardianship, and I also own a business that does estate administration. So I can have high-level conversations about all those topics. But what I'm saying is, what tools, what could help out our listeners? Because I think the vast majority of people are like, what the hell do I do? Like, they're somewhere between living paycheck to paycheck and maybe have like one rental home, or maybe have or they may have some money saved up and they're like, I don't know, right? Robinhood just got a new round of funding. I think it got it just got like 2 days ago. For those that don't know, not a sponsor, but Robinhood, if you'd like to join our sponsor list, we've got a great sponsorship list. Robinhood is a lot of self-investing. It's the self-investing tool. So for your own business, what do you see? Like, do you see a lot of newer generation, like people like in our age group, doing a lot more self-investing? And you talked about helping them with the Roth IRA. I think people are being a little bit more aggressive. We live in a town where we see, bets going over black and red, and odd and even. So what do you have advice for those people, for that vast majority of people who are like, hey, I may have a 401k or I may have an IRA, but I have no idea how to maximize it. I had no idea how to play those games.
Okay. So
and I know that's a lot, but I also talk fast, and it also comes right off the top of the head.
No, I'm good. I'm good with that. As far as what to do, I think one of the questions you actually asked earlier actually kind of answers that a little bit, and that as far as when should you be talking to a financial advisor or planner, whichever, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes I find that it's better to work with a professional than not. Think about within your life. When do you actually, who are the professionals you work with? Right, you can think about the attorney, the physician, right, and mechanics, hopefully, right, of your car,
right,
and things of that nature. So plumbers. Thank you very much. Goes back in time for me a little bit.
I love plumbers.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a problem not know a good plumber.
What's the plumber rule, Adam? Like if it doesn't go down,
Oh, you really want to go there?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
But bottom line is, it's always better, I think, to work with a professional. I think one of the phrases that I hear a lot, or that I actually share a lot, is sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? Sometimes because you don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And so far better to speak with somebody that's someone intelligent, that's a professional in the field that they work with. And so if somebody, I met with somebody just this past week, a retired individual, has a pension coming in, but there's like $500,000 sitting in this defined benefit plan, which is a deferred compensation plan. As he takes dollars out of it, he's then taxed on that as income. But it's sitting in incredibly aggressive funds, and he had no idea why when I asked him. And so there are strategies in place where you can actually have no risk whatsoever, and then you can still capture upside as far as gain within the market as the market comes back up. And so that's a strategy he had no idea about. And it's not really going to cost him much of anything at all to just to change his theory, right? Change the environment, the instrument vehicle that he's in. And so if somebody were saying, well, man, what do I do? I think one of the things you want to think about in today's environment, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck,
or somewhere in between. Let's bump it up a little bit. A blend. Let's say they're not living paycheck to paycheck, but they're living somewhere right around it. Like and I think that's where the majority of people are. Like if you look at the majority of people that go to Costco, right? You need to be able to write and Adam, in your guys' case, you got to be able to write.
Good heavens!
You got to write a $500 check, right?
I can't walk out of there without a $300 bill.
Oh, you must have stole some samples. Let's be honest. You're walking out of there with a $500.
It is an
$500
expensive
bill
position for our family.
And so that's why I say, like, in order to foot a food bill like that, I think that a lot of families they're not wealthy. They're doing okay. They're doing okay, and they're like, but there's that lingering thought. I might be doing okay today, but am I making the right? Let's take Adam, for example. Like,
here's the difference.
What can we do to get Adam, like, rich, I guess? Or
well, I heard this saying once, that there's people out there working for their money, or people that money works for them.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. I think a lot of Americans, myself included, are in that more category. I go to work, I work hard, I do overtime, and I make this amount of money to sustain my life. Do we have some leftover? Sometimes a little bit. Sometimes we have to break into it. Sometimes it goes down to zero. Sometimes it builds up. But I'm in there just working for it. I don't have any, minus my retirements, my money's not doing anything for me but just keeping me alive. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. And great memories.
And great memories.
I mean, the Royal Caribbean was phenomenal.
Well, it was good, but all I'm doing is making it and then turn around and spending it. I'm not investing it. And I think a lot of Americans, obviously, I was going to say, you two obviously know what you're talking about. I'm the knuckle dragger in the room. I don't know half of all of this
But
information.
here's the truth.
All I
Adam,
do know is I think I fit in that category of people who need to be educated, because the last time I had any kind of financial class, it was on how to balance a checkbook.
See,
We don't even do that anymore. And now, since the 90s, when I graduated from high school,
Back then.
and then now today, all I've done is figured it out on my own. I just done stuff. Sometimes I would listen to Ramsey on the radio and hear some of his advice, and okay, well, that's good. Let me try that. But I can't follow his entire program because it doesn't always totally fit. Yeah, so I take bits and pieces of this smorgasbord of a meal. Okay, that works for me, that works for me, and that works for me. And I'm going to try to make it happen on my own. Never seeing a professional, never seeing any real counsel, never have someone with, like your eyes, Lance, to look at my bills, my income, my numbers, and give me real good advice. And I feel that's why we were so grateful for you to be in here, because I think, I mean, Eric's an exception, but I think a lot of Americans are kind of in my boat. I think the majority are in my boat, and then there's a few that know what the heck they're doing. And that's who we're trying to get this information to.
I do think that although I am very grateful for my family. I mean, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my kids and for my sweetheart. No question about it. As you have a bigger family, there are more fiscal need, right? There just is. There are greater fiscal needs, right? You have braces and school and soccer and football and basketball. But I think how I would answer this just a little bit is if we think back to 13 years ago, 12 years ago, we had a very similar event happen nationally and globally, and with Eric, within your market, within the real estate side, right? We had people that were diversified into 10 to 12 homes that made $50,000 a year. And so as a direct result, you had people that were not diversified at all.
Right.
They didn't have options. So to answer your question a little bit, Adam, is that oftentimes for the common Joe, and Adam, we'll just say that you're the common Joe in this example. And
I fit that perfect.
I think you're terrific. But I think the opportunity is, and this is where I think people lose out on opportunities, is to minimize the risk to your fiscal position, right? By having opportunities, diversification. And I don't mean that just within funds. I don't mean that within just your IRA or your 401k, but to have a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, is something that you should think about. We can talk about that a little bit today, because there's been some changes within that.
JP Morgan Chase just cut all their HELOCs. They're not opening up new HELOCs. Did you see that?
I did not see that. No, but I'm not surprised to hear that at all.
So JP Morgan Chase just X those next.
So okay, but that would be a line of assets where you could get into some of the value of your home potentially, right? To have a 3 months emergency supply of money. I will tell you that almost across the board, I've talked to people that are making $500,000 to $600,000 a year that I've asked them, do you have an emergency fund? And they'll look back at me and they'll say, what? What do you mean? And so I have to explain to them what an emergency fund is. An emergency fund, well, again, you go back to the goal. The goal is it's cash. I don't care about the rate of return. I'll be candid. I want liquidity. And an emergency fund is something that, hey, if you're not working at all, well, here we are.
Yeah, right.
This pays for what is critically needed, right? It's not talking about, well, maybe Netflix is critically needed in our homes, right? Because we have 20 kids.
At least the internet bill.
Yeah, well, but that would be part of it, right? The internet, yes, that is needed in my home without question. The water, the mortgage, right? Insurances and things like that. But it does not necessarily need to pay for miscellaneous expenses. And I find that very, very few people, number one, can identify and itemize literally what is needed within that 3 months emergency fund, nor do they have the liquidity and the dollars put aside in an account that they never touch, ever. Like, you don't touch that money, right? And then I ask, well, let's start that. Let's start putting stuff away. And then once you get to 3 months, I'd like to see it as a 6 month position. And then we can start talking about maybe a high yield money market account, maybe has a little bit less liquidity, but has a little bit better return. But again, the goal is identifying something as far as a 3 months emergency fund.
So Lance, we're talking to Americans. It's a bad audience for that conversation.
But it shouldn't be.
Well, so the reason why is our savings rate is atrocious.
But it's gotten better in the last 10 years.
It has.
But
It
maybe
has.
the silver lining of this whole COVID-19 is that a lot of people, like you, save, and then what you interpret an emergency was always the wavy line. What's an emergency to Eric and then to me? Like, oh, I need new tires for the car. Mm-hmm. That's an emergency type of thing. And then you're that money you're not supposed to be touching, you end up touching it because you justify that whatever situation you're emerging. Now we have really lived through a crisis. All of Americans have. Now we can at least have some kind of standard to judge against. It's like, well, I got to have this 3 months. I cannot touch it until something like this happens again. Now I know what that emergency is. Because in my lifetime, I know we've had 9/11, but here on the West Coast, it didn't really affect me. It didn't really.
I was in New York when that happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was upstate New York, and I recall when that happened, the state shut down.
See, so on the East Coast, it affected everyone. But here, it didn't really affect. I mean, it was sad. We saw it on the news. A lot of soldiers went to war after that, but it didn't really affect my pocketbook until now. And then now this whole thing, I think it's changing everything.
And as opposed to the 2008 recession, we're actually looking at this pandemic being something closer to in between 9/11-ish and 2008-ish. In the fact that, so 9/11, what happened here on a micro basis is the corporations that run the casinos actually took advantage of the layoffs that they did, and they actually pushed those layoffs into full-on terminations, and they found ways to cut their overhead. And so this has been a reset. This will be a reset for them to do it again, to figure out, okay, yes, what can we do? What positions do we not need? I've even heard a lot of talk of a lot of the buffets not even coming back. They're not going to deal with the overhead with that. The whole point of a buffet is to get as many people through as possible. And now with the whole COVID, it's just the opposite. Like, you'll need social spacing. We're looking at doing social distancing for at least another 6 to 12 months. And it may even lengthen out. It may even feather out to 2022. But the point with that is, I thought what you said was great, Adam, in the fact you're like, well, I'm the only knuckle dragger here. I think what Lance and I both, like my background, I come from a blue collar family, right? And like most of my family members were blue collar, working 9 to 5, Monday through Saturday, Monday through Friday. And so I heard that when you said that too, Lance. You're like, hey, I started off knowing plumbing, and said, you know what? I want to have my hands when I'm 50.
Yeah.
I don't want to bust my knuckles. And so same thing. People are surprised, they're like, Eric, you do real estate, which real estate is like a quarterback for finance and investment and all this. But, I also know how to work with my hands because that's how I grew up. And so I think all this advice is perfect. I think that's what people, how many people have contacted you, said, hey, I just got a text message, and they're like, hey, someone, what can I do to get my food storage up, right? And it's just the same mentality of food storage. And my wife and I were talking about, she's seeing things that are a run on produce right now. There's a run on fresh vegetables, and people are starting to realize, hey, we stocked up with the pantry goods when the crisis first hit, and now we want fresh food. And so now some of those supply lines are starting to be hammered. So
that was part 1 with our interview here with Lance Bohne here in the Rooftop Realty studio. Man, when we talk about finances, there's so much to unpack. There's so much to talk to. It affects everyone differently. So it was hard to fit all of this information into one long podcast, and we really don't like doing that. So we broke this up into 2 different parts. So that was part 1. Please stay tuned for a couple days, and we will have part 2 out with our interview with Lance Bohne. And he will get into more great advice of maybe what we can do with our finances. If he doesn't answer all of your questions, please email us at stayingintroublepodcast@gmail.com, and we will get with any questions that you may have. We will definitely forward them to you, and his information will be in the bio on iTunes and the bio to this podcast. So you can reach him if you have any other further questions or more advice. Obviously, we can't get into everything, but we appreciate him being here in the studio and being able to talk about this pretty important issue, especially that's going on today. So we hope you enjoy part 1, and please tune back in to part 2 here at Staying in Trouble. Thank you very much.